Hello BookTube! Welcome to Lizzie Faye Loves Books. I'm Elizabeth and this is my November and December TBR as well as what I am currently reading. Now the majority of the books that I'm reading for November and December are to finish the 2015 Ultimate Reading Challenge that is by Pop Sugar, and I will link that challenge down below. And then I am also reading the Sunshine State Young Reader Award finalists for the 3rd to 5th grade. I finished the 6th to 8th grade books in September and I have barely started the 3rd to 5th grade list, but I did do an overview video of those books. Now, in addition to those two challenges, I have a few other books that I plan to read that if I can get to them. One of them I'm already reading. This is Curse of Crow Hollow by Billy Coffey. Recently, I won this book from Christy from What Christy's Reading for her 100 subscriber giveaway, and she had a copy as well, and we decided to buddy read it. So we started this the last week of October, and it was a lot slower for me than I thought it was going to be. Christy was able to go ahead and finish it in 1 week and include it in her wrap-up, but I am only about half done. So we have been discussing it some online, but we will discuss it more once I finish it. It's been a little slower for me because it's written in a country mountain accent from the perspective of one of the townspeople from Crow Hollow, and so in order for me to really get the full feel of it, I have to kind of read it aloud in my head, and so that makes it go a little slower. Plus, I'm having a hard time relating to any of the characters. The characters are really not very likable to me, so that makes it a little slower. But it is a very interesting book, and I am looking forward to figuring out what is going on and learning what happens. Another book I have barely started, but my daughter is insisting that I read it before the end of the year, is Selection. She has read the whole series, and we bought the first 3 of this series at the Scholastic warehouse sale back in the spring, and I said then that I was going to read it, but I have just not gotten around to it. I have picked this up and read 1 chapter so far, and I would like to get to this as soon as possible because my daughter is really insisting that I read this soon. And this is another book I want to get to. This is Magnus Chase and the Gods of Asgard, Book 1, The Sword of Summer. I'm sure you've seen this. It's all over BookTube. I was able to go to a Rick Riordan live event here in Central Florida earlier in October, and I got my own autographed copy of this book. So I'm very excited about that. And I was going to postpone it, but I keep hearing people talk about it, and people are reading it right now because it's new. It's like the latest great thing. And so I'm thinking, oh, I really want to read it. And it sounds like it's going to be an easy, fun read. So if I can fit it in amongst all my other books that I need to finish by the end of the year, I'm going to read it. Now, I mentioned the Sunshine State Young Reader Award finalists for 3rd to 5th grade. I discovered that out of the 15 books, 5 of them are on a 3rd grade level, 5 of them are on a 4th grade level, and the other 5 are on a 5th grade level. And the one I read last month in October was on a 3rd grade level. So I decided that I would go ahead and read the rest of the ones that are 3rd grade level, and then I'll do a wrap-up of the 3rd grade books before starting the 4th and 5th grade books. So I have already read White Fur Flying by Patricia McCormick, and she's the author of Sarah Plain and Tall, so you can imagine how great this book is, but I will talk more about it in the wrap-up I do for these books. The one I read last month was Freaky Fast Frankie Joe by Patricia Clifton. And then the next one I'm going to read is 8 Keys by Suzanne Collins. And after that, Athlete versus Mathlete by W.C. Mack. And then 3 Times Lucky by Sheila Turnage. Another book I'm currently reading, this is for the Ultimate Reading Challenge, to read a book that your mother loved. I'm reading Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm. Now this is the Great Illustrated Classics edition, and it is adapted by Eliza Gatewood Warren. The original Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm is by Kate Douglas Wiggin. If you saw my October TBR, I was debating about whether to read this or a different book for that challenge, and one person commented that I should read this, and since that was kind of what I was leaning towards, I decided to go ahead and read this. I'm reading this to my oldest daughter who has autism because my mother, before she died, she inscribed this to my daughter Emily. It was actually several years before she died. She died in 2008, and this is dated July 12th, 2003. It's to my daughter Emily. So at the time, she was only 2 years old, and it says, "This was my favorite story when I was growing up in Oklahoma. I hope you enjoy it too. I love you, Grandma Frances." So clearly this was a favorite book of my mother's, and I decided that since it was written to Emily, but more than likely Emily will never be able to read it on her own and really can't comprehend much about it. It's really above her level of comprehension. I'm still reading this to her because it gives us some quality time together. Right now we're about halfway through it. And if you've never read any of these great illustrated classics, each page has a full page illustration. I mean, each double page has a full page illustration and one page of text. So that as you're reading the text, then whoever you're reading it to has a full page to look at while you're reading. And so this is ideal for a chapter book for me to read to Emily because it does give her something to look at while I'm reading. Another prompt for the Ultimate Reading Challenge is to read a book that is over 100 years old. Now, I'm sure that it would be fine to read a book that was originally published over 100 years old, but between all the members of my family, we have over 1,000 books in my house, and so I knew that I could find a book somewhere that was over 100 years old. I mean, that the actual book is over 100 years old. So I found this one. I think I picked this up at a book sale quite a few months ago before I started booktubing. If you can't see it because it's kind of faded, it's the Hiawatha Primer, published by Houghton Mifflin Company. And it says that it was originally, I'll put it up here. It says that it was originally set up and electrotyped in 1898, and this version was reset and electrotyped in 1909. So I have already started this too. It's really neat. There's even some songs in it, and some of the pages are torn. There are illustrations on some of the pages in black and white, and then there are also pages of color illustrations that are inserted in. So it's really, really a neat book. It's very fragile, but I figured since I had it on my shelf and I had not read it, this would be a great time to read it. I still have this on my TBR. I mentioned this last month. I need to read a book that got bad reviews. Well, this one got pretty bad reviews. It's rated on Goodreads, overall a 2.65. It is The Almost Moon by Alice Sebold, and I have started it barely, and I do plan to finish this sometime in November and December for the Ultimate Reading Challenge. There's another challenge that says read a book from your childhood. Now, I've just looking in the Goodreads group, some people are reading books that they read when they were a child, and so they're rereading them. One of the self-imposed challenges that I added to this challenge was to not include any books that I've read in the past. So that left it a little bit challenging. I, however, have a book from my childhood that I have not read. This has been on my shelf since elementary school. I'm not exactly sure what grade I got this in, but I received this as an award for saying Bible verses from a traveling preacher and his wife, and I have never read it. It is Maddie Doolin by Catherine Cookson, and it is about a boy who wants to be a veterinarian. And I won this for saying my Bible verses all year, and I have never read it. Sad to say. It has followed me around. Every time I look through my books thinking that I could call out some or get rid of some, I always feel guilty that I haven't read this, and because I earned it and it looks like a good book, I feel like I should read it. So when I saw that challenge, read a book from your childhood, and I was looking on my shelves, I thought, this is it. I have got to read this book. It's only like 150 pages. So yeah, it's 159 pages. I don't know why I haven't read it. It's just because there was no urgency. It was on my shelf. I didn't have to check it back into the library. So it's just sat there, and I'm going to read it. This is my excuse. Hold me accountable. Ask me later if I read it, and I'm going to read this book. Another challenge is to read a book that you own but have never read. Well, I have had this book for a couple of years. My sister gave it to me and thought I would enjoy it. My husband and I have watched the movie, but I have not read the book. It's called Heaven is for Real, and it's by Todd Burpo. It is a memoir of Todd Burpo and his son, and it was a great movie. I really enjoyed it, and I've been looking forward to reading the book, but just needed an excuse to get it read. So this is going to fulfill that challenge. Now, another challenge is to read a book that will make me cry. I've got it narrowed down to 3, and I'm not sure which one of these is going to make me cry. This one I would really like to read, but I have a feeling it's just going to make me angry. It's called Sold by Patricia McCormick, and it's about a young girl who has been sold into sex slavery. It looks like a really quick read. There are not a lot of words on each page, and it's double-spaced, so I think it'll be a quick read. I'm planning to go ahead and read it anyway. I just don't know if it's going to fulfill this prompt. My daughter Katie says this will make me cry. It's the last book in the Gregor and the Underland Chronicles series by Suzanne Collins, called Gregor and the Code of Claw. She has read this, and my husband and I have been listening to this on audio, but she has insisted that we read this book in physical form because it has codes in it, and she said it's too good of a book to listen to on audio. Well, she doesn't really like audiobooks. I like audiobooks, so I don't have a problem with that. But it does have some codes in it, so I'm willing to go ahead and read it since I do have this copy of it, but I'm not sure it's going to make me cry. She says that there are some scenes that she's pretty sure will make me cry, but it's kind of a long book, and I was hoping to read shorter books to finish up these challenges. It is about 400 pages, but they are, it's a pretty large font because it's a middle grade book, so it probably won't take me very long, especially since I'm really interested in the series and I am really enjoying it. A couple of the ladies at my church have read this and said that this would make me tear up. It's called The Good Dream by Donna Van Leer, and the ones who have read it have really enjoyed it and just sped through it, so it looks like it's a quick read. This is also one of my options. If you've read any of these 3 books, and if any of them did or didn't make you cry, please let me know because I need some guidance about which one of these to read for that challenge. Now, coming from a hometown of just over 400 people, you might think there would be some difficulty in finding a book that is set in my hometown. There actually is a published author from my hometown, and I sent him a message on Facebook to ask him if he had written any books that were specifically set in our hometown, and he said no. They're mainly set in historical Indian Territory, which is Oklahoma. But I did realize that I had this on my shelf. I bought this at an alumni meeting a few years back. It was written in 2011, and it's called Bennington Memories of Bennington, Oklahoma by Glenna Baber Foreman. And this is full of photos and memories and all kinds of things, articles and things like that from the families of my hometown of Bennington, Oklahoma. So I am looking forward to this. This challenge is a really good excuse to get this book read. And then another challenge for the Ultimate Reading Challenge is to read a book that is set at Christmas time. So I have chosen to read Skipping Christmas by John Grisham. 2 other books that I do not have yet that I need to read for the Ultimate Reading Challenge. One is to read a book set in high school. So I have already chosen The Homeroom Diaries by James Patterson, and I will be checking that out from my library. Then for a book that I was supposed to read in school but didn't, I have chosen The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton. Now, it's not that I was actually supposed to read that in school, but I don't think there is anything I was supposed to read in school that I didn't read. And since that is a book set in Oklahoma, which is where I grew up, and it was published before I was in school, and I'm pretty sure that some kids, especially in around the Tulsa area, have been assigned to read that in school. So I think that's a good choice for me because it's something that is set in an area I'm familiar with, and it's something that I have not read that I would like to read. I did see the movie, but it's been a long time, so I'm looking forward to reading the book, and then after I read the book, then I will go back and watch the movie. Alright, audiobooks that I am planning to read for November. I've actually already started this because we're already a few days into November. This is Jan Karen's newest book. It just came out, I think, in September. It is Come Rain or Come Shine. The Jan Karen Mitford books are just my favorite book series of all times. They're just wonderful. And I have never actually sat down and read one of them in physical form. I have only ever listened to them on audio. I own them all in physical books. Most of them I accumulated secondhand, but I am hoping to perhaps receive the physical book of this for Christmas, maybe, from my family. But meanwhile, I wanted to go ahead and listen to this because I just couldn't wait. And then I think at some point I'm going to go back, now that I have collected all of the physical books, I'm going to start back at the beginning and I'm just going to savor them all because they're just beautiful. If you have not read any of these books, I actually have paperback copies of the first 2 that I will probably use as a giveaway when and if I ever hit 100 subscribers. So if you're interested in that, tell all your friends to come and subscribe, and that will be at least one of my giveaways. Now, I know not everyone is interested in that, so I may offer a couple of choices for my 100 subscriber giveaway, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Another one I have started, this is on tape that I'm listening to in my car. This is Desecration by Tim LaHaye and Jerry B. Jenkins. It is number 9 in the Left Behind series. I started this series several years ago on audio, and I kind of laid it aside and had not picked one up in quite a while, and I couldn't really remember why. When I started listening to this, I think I remember why now, because there is a particular character that was introduced several books into the series, and the narrator is not pronouncing his name correctly. It's just making me crazy, and I cannot stand it. I find myself yelling at the console because it's just wrong, and I know it can. And I know a name could be different, but I'm just wondering how in the world he came up with this pronunciation. Was the author consulted? Is that the way the author wanted it done? Do the authors even get consulted? I'm going to look into this, because this is not the first time that I have encountered mispronunciations in audiobooks. And I'm just wondering what the process is. And I may do a discussion video on that someday when I do a little more research into this topic, because that is something that really bothers me when things are mispronounced in audiobooks. So anyway, the book is fine. This pronunciation is just making me crazy. And I'm not even going to go into what it is specifically. I'll save that for another video. But I am about half done with this so far, and it's pretty good. I do plan to go ahead and finish the series, and I am enjoying it. For book club, I am going to be listening to A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. And my book club is the third Thursday of the month, so I need to get on this because I only have a few days left, and I think it's 13 discs, 16 hours on 13 discs. So I got to get busy on this one. And then one other audiobook that I've got ordered from the library, but it did not get here in time for this video, is Partner in Crime by J.A. Jance. That is the 10th book in the Joanna Brady series, and it's also the 16th book in the J.P. Beaumont series. It's a mashup of the two series. My husband and I have actually already listened to this when we were first listening to the J.P. Beaumont series. Since it's been a couple of years since we listened to Partner in Crime, I thought it would be good to go ahead and listen to it again so that we can now look at it from the Joanna Brady perspective. That is all that I have to show you for November and December. I probably will add a couple more things for December. Maybe I will just do a combination November wrap-up and December TBR to let you know what I finished and what I still have to read. So I hope you'll subscribe to my channel. I hope you're having a great day. Read a good book, and God bless you.